All right, you guys have tuned in for another episode of the Quit List. We appreciate you guys being here as usual. Right before we get going, we'd like for you to go ahead and share the video with the folks that you know and love. They're going to appreciate you for doing that for them. I'm Dr. Stan, the Quit Doctor. Today on the show, I'm joined by my guest, Gavin Jackson, Esquire. Gavin Jackson is an attorney and entrepreneur. Attorney Jackson, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Always a good time to be here on the Quit List.
We're also joined by Dr. Gerard McClendon, PhD. Dr. McClendon is a professor at Chicago State University. Dr. McClendon, welcome to the program.
Great to be here on the Quit List.
All right, excellent. And we're also joined today by our new great and extraordinary guest. This man is going to knock your socks off. He's actually a self-described frustrated Democrat. I can understand that. Patrick Brutus is an expert in economic development. He is a two-time Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate, and he's the co-host of The Black Table. Patrick Brutus, welcome to the Quit List.
Hey, thanks for having me here on the Quit List, Dr. Stan, and happy to join this esteemed panel. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Issue number one on the Quit List, the Electoral College. We know that the election is just a few days away, and we cannot wait to get that in our rearview mirror. When the country was first started, the founders were divided over how they were going to pick the president. Some of the people wanted the Congress to select the president. Other people wanted the citizens to do it. And the Electoral College was their compromise. In order to become the president, the candidate is going to have to get 270 electoral votes. That's 270. And that's just a little bit over half of all the electors. Now, based on this system, a person can actually win and become the president without winning the popular vote. We've seen that with Hillary Clinton. We've seen that several other times throughout history. I want to go to Patrick Brutus on this. What do you think about the notion that we're in a so-called democracy, yet the will of the people, in other words, if the people vote X number of votes for whatever the candidate is, there is a possibility that that person will not be the president. What do you think of that system?
Growing up, I always questioned the system. As a young voter, I was always an advocate for the popular vote being the measure of how to elect the president, much like it is for all the other elections under the executive branch office. But as I've gotten older, I understand the system was one that was supposed to provide an equal measure for all states, the little states and the big states. And so I have grown accustomed to the system as it is, and I am not in favor of changing it today.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. That's really the thing that we want to explore, whether we ought to be changing that system or not. One of the things that you said is that the idea behind designing the system is to equalize the big states and the little states. How about that? Attorney Jackson, you think that's a good reason for the Electoral College?
I think originally that was a good reason, and many other good reasons. Number one, the country wasn't founded as a pure democracy. It's a representative republic. And so at that time, it was just unwieldy, almost impossible. How could you get votes by horseback from South Carolina to Washington, D.C., or from new territories, West Virginia? You're going to get those Pony Express mail, votes in from each individual. So that's how we were founded. Even Brother Patrick said that he's a two-time Senate candidate. Even senators were originally elected by state representatives. We did not choose our own senators. But as so many things have evolved, not just technology, not just the way that we operate as a republic, I believe that we should evolve and get rid of, or at least update, the Electoral College. This is not 1776. This is not 1790. This is 2020. The way we have voted and every other elected official has changed except for the president.
Mm-hmm. Dr. McClendon, one of the reasons that the founders espoused for creating this system of the electoral college is that they thought that a lot of people were, or the populace was unintelligent and uninformed. In fact, too uninformed to pick a president. What do you think?
Well, I don't believe that, but here's the deal. As a child, my father used to try to explain the Electoral College to me, and he would do such a great job. And at the end of his explanation, I still didn't know what he was talking about. I mean, to this day, man, I still feel like 3/5 of a person. When voting for a particular slate of electors is the Electoral College. Of course, it's different in Maine and Nebraska, but with the other states, the candidate who wins the most votes, the plurality in the state receives all the state's electoral votes. Here's the problem, though. The number of electors in each state is the sum of its U.S. senators and U.S. representatives. I say winner take all, because what happens is when the power structure starts to lose population, then the people advocate for changing the rules. And so when it comes to big cities like Houston and Chicago and Philly and New York and LA, it's like, whoo, those cities getting a little bit too big. Those cities have too many people of color. It may shift the power structure. Let's keep the Electoral College in place. I say no. I say winner take all. I think it should be a popular vote.
So when you say winner take all, you're saying that you think that whoever gets the most popular vote wins. You're not saying that you think that, because winner take all could apply to, each of the states have a certain amount of electors, and they could be different depending on the population in the state.
One man,
you're not saying that.
One man, one woman. One man, one woman, one vote. Hillary Clinton wins by 3 million votes, but she still loses. Really?
Yeah, that's interesting.
But what I will say is, for the most part, over the course of American history, the popular vote has resulted in the winner of the presidency. I mean, it's been pretty equal, except for a couple of occasions. I believe John F. Kennedy versus Nixon in '60 was a very close plurality, and then of course what happened in 2016 with Trump and Hillary.
I think it happened
and 2008.
In
2008. No Republican president has won the popular vote since the Nixon era. Bush, not 2008. I mean Bush, the original Bush election. Remember the big fight over Florida? The big fight was over Florida, and the Supreme Court shut down the election.
Yeah.
But George Bush still did not win the popular vote. He won the Electoral College.
Hanging chads.
Right.
Yeah, I think the system, though. One thing real quick, two things. I want to provide clarity for your viewers. I ran twice for the U.S. Congress as a representative, not the Senate, and I ran in the 1st district as well as the 2nd district. But number two, the one man, one vote, which I agree with you, Mr. McClendon, and you were very astute in saying that and reminding everybody that that's how it should be. That's how it is in the Constitution, I believe. But, it does invite fraud.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that was part of the narrative of the 2016 election, especially in California, where, you have a number of vote totals that was contested. And so it does invite fraud. And so I think, we have to be aware of that if we still want to have integrity in our elections.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you say that it does invite fraud, do you believe that it actually suppresses the vote? Now, I'm sort of equating voter suppression and fraud as the same thing. Do you think that the Electoral College actually invites more fraud than the straight popular vote? Because if you count the vote and you just count one vote and whoever gets the most is the winner. If you insert the Electoral College, that means that person, and again, just for the viewers, the person who wins has to get 270 votes, but 270 electoral votes. So theoretically, the popular vote in the state, let's assume Illinois, if you're in Illinois, if you win, you're the candidate, you win Illinois, you're supposed to get all of Illinois' electors. However, they don't have to get all of the electors. In fact, the electors can vote for whoever they want. Now, they're kind of on the honor system, so they're supposed to cast their vote for that person. So the electors actually act like a middleman We vote
Yes.
and say we want this person, and then they actually cast the real vote. So our vote does not really elect the president. It's those 270 electors. They're the ones who vote for the president. You think you don't see problems with that?
Well, that's the way this country was founded. The country was founded in a way where, as you gave in your opening monologue, where the vast majority of people were illiterate. Like, actually being educated was an elite thing in America until the late 1800s. Public schools did not exist at the founding of America. So you had to have money to really even learn how to read. And so it was a representative government. Each state, you elected representatives, and those representatives that you elected went on to do the business, like you said, of the honor system, to represent the people that elected them. And that goes from the Senate, the president on down. What I am arguing is that due to advances in technology, due to advances to access to information, due to advances in education, people can decide for themselves. I am not some illiterate field hand that needs somebody to do what's best for me and go to Washington and vote for me. I can get the information myself. I can make the decision myself. And so I think we need to evolve based on the fact that the country has evolved.
Mm-hmm. Dr. McClendon, do you think that this electoral college actually causes people to lose faith in the process? Does it minimize the confidence in the electoral process?
I think it can, if people garner enough information about the electoral college and about the popular vote. Like, if you go state by state and look at how many electoral votes each state gets, and then you look at the population of the state, if every American looked at that, they would gasp, they would sigh, they would be like, wait a minute, why does this state with this population have it can have an equivalent in terms of population, but a different number in terms of electoral votes. And so I think that becomes the problem, where people, they don't know what the electoral college is. Therefore, they think that their vote is insignificant. This is why you get a lot of people that just say, I'm not going to vote. Don't trust the system. Don't trust the politicians. Don't trust the electoral college. My candidate didn't win last time, even though the candidate had the popular vote. I think many times people want stuff with the greatest simplicity, and the electoral college is not simple by any means.
What do you think, Patrick? Does the electoral college muddy up the waters?
So I may have a difference of opinion here, but I want to recognize what each of you said. And I think just to get back to, I think your essential question before you pivoted to Dr. McClendon was, a situation where you were positioning the scenario of a faithless elector, which presented itself in the last election with respect to how the voters who we elect to then cast their ballot as the electoral college. Sorry?
Could you just briefly say what a faithless elector is?
So the faithless elector scenario was in states that did not actually require the electoral voters to vote based on the popular vote of the whoever won on that party. They were obligated to vote. But in certain states, there is no written agreement or no, not disclaimer, but there is no agreement where the voter has to vote based on the popular vote results. And so they were imploring some of those electors to become faithless electors and then vote their conscience to what Dr. Gavin was articulating, voting based on who they actually believe should hold that office, and et cetera, and et cetera. But it's actually a two-pronged process. So in the state of Illinois, for example, we elect the electors, and those electors are actually the Democratic and Republican state central committee. So those representatives are the ones who are the electoral voters. And so if Biden wins Illinois, right, he will have the Democrats cast their vote. But I believe in Illinois, we had that system where they actually have to cast the vote for the Democrat who wins, or, the party who wins. But in certain states, to Dr. McClendon's point about the history of our voting system, like that is, I think, what you were talking about. Like the faithless elector scenario, which presented itself in 2016. But I do think, again, the thing that equates the entire system is the 2 votes per state based on the Senate. That is where there's equality in the system. Now, the wild card is how every 10 years the balance of those votes, the other 438, will shift based on states losing population or gaining population, because that remains unchanged in the Congress. Yeah. And so that's where you will, we're going to see a loss of electoral votes and districts, accordingly in Illinois when we realize a loss in population as we have been declining. Now, where did that population move to? Did it move to Texas? Did it move to California? There's a lot of people in California moving to Texas right now, and a lot of folks are migrating back down south from Illinois or going to Indiana. So, but the 438 remains the same across the 50 states based on representation of a population of around 650 to 750,000 people per district. And so that is where I think you had that unfair representation. So like in a state like Montana or Maine, where you only have 1 or 2 congressmen, that state could still have 2, 3, 4 million people. And that representative now has to represent more people, which that does not speak for that plurality of people, right? And I think that's to your point, Dr. Gavin. So it's an imperfect system, but it's a system that we have known since, the 1700s, since this country was founded. And so,
now that's a good point. We are out of time on issue number 1. It's time for us to hit it or quit it. I'm going to go to Patrick Brutus first. The question here is, just because the system has been around since the beginning of the country, does that dictate that we should maintain that system? So the real question is, should we eliminate the Electoral College? Hit it means yes, quit it means no. Patrick Brutus, what say you?
I say quit it. No.
Dr. McClendon, hit it or quit it?
You have to quit. So I guess I say yes to quitting the electoral system. Get rid of the Electoral College.
All right. Attorney Jackson, what do you say?
I'm saying you absolutely have to get rid of the Electoral College. More than white male landowners are citizens now. That has evolved. Let the voting system evolve along with it.
Issue number 2 on the quit list, Amy Coney Barrett. As you know, Amy Coney Barrett was just jammed through and put on the Supreme Court just about a week prior to a presidential election. Now, that is unheard of. Her confirmation actually ensures that America is no longer a progressive nation in terms of the court, at least. Mitch McConnell said over the next, in recent times, just like coming up soon, the new administration, if there's a new administration, they will probably overturn or undo a lot of what the current administration has done. However, Mitch McConnell said they won't be able to do anything about this Supreme Court nomination for a long time to come. He's right, because the Supreme Court justices are appointed for life. Now, 1 week before the election, does that say anything about the Republicans? Dr. McClendon, do you think that the idea or the fact that they would jam through a Supreme Court nominee who's going to be on the court for life just about 1 week prior to the election, can you read anything? Can you surmise something about the Republican Party or just about politics in general from that?
I mean, we could say that. I mean, when you watch the news, it's clear that it's diametrically opposing each side. You hear the term "jam through." You hear the phrase "we can do what we want because we still hold the presidency." See, as far as this confirmation destroying the integrity of the court, I don't think it's necessarily going to do that. It depends on which side you're on. Here's the other thing. It's perfectly within their constitutionality to appoint the Supreme Court judge. So, if I'm an Amy Coney Barrett fan, I'm happy. If I'm against her, I'm probably sad. But we got to look at the rules, man. The rules are the rules. Democrats could do the same thing. So, sure, I don't want Amy Coney Barrett to be on the court. Sure, I may think that they're jamming it through. But as far as the Constitution is concerned, Donald Trump's still president, for a few more months. Even if he loses, he can do what he wants.
So what you're saying is true. They do have the right. They do have the authority to put anyone on the court that they want to, as long as they have the votes to do it, which obviously they did have the votes and do have the votes.
That's politics. That's politics. And that's the Constitution.
So that brings up a question, Patrick. And the question is this. One of the AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she said that the only reason that they did that is because the Republicans believe that the Democrats don't have the stones to do anything about it. Now, her suggestion is that they expand the court. What do you think about that? They have the right to expand. If the Democrats win, they do have the right to expand the court. You think they should do it?
So I good question. I think it really needs to be defined what stack and pack the courts actually means in regards to the Supreme Court. And we need to, like Dr. Gerard said, we need to examine the constitutionality of what expanding the size of the Supreme Court actually, means, and if it actually can be done without a constitutional convention, which is of the 50 states. We have to take that vote at the state level first and then the federal level. So I don't think they can do it by an act of Congress. I'm not in favor of that.
Attorney Jackson.
Go ahead.
So I think
Attorney Jackson, what do you want?
So number one, I think that AOC is right. I think that there is no such thing as a fair fight. The concept of a fair fight is a social myth. You use everything at your disposal to win, and the Republicans have done that. To that extent, she is correct that they should expand the courts to 13, and there's actually a rationale for it. The original Supreme Court had 7 justices because there were 7 federal circuits in the United States. When the federal circuits expanded to 9 federal circuits, the Supreme Court expanded to 9 Supreme Court justices. At this time, there are 13 federal circuits in the United States. Matching the number of justices to the number of federal circuits there's precedence for it. The Congress did it before without a constitutional convention, and I think it is time to do that. So I'm with her. If the Democrats are able to get the presidency, the Congress, and the Senate, expand to match the number of circuits now and let the Republicans cry about it.
I actually think that's a very rational argument. That's actually the best argument that anyone has ever made. And I'm talking CNN, MSNBC, Fox, everything. That's
what we do here on the quit list. On the quit list, we make the best arguments. They need to come see us.
You made the best argument for that. I wasn't even thinking about that. I don't even know. I defer to the attorneys.
But no, that's originally the justices matched the number of circuits. Yeah. That's the only argument.
So what do you think about this, Patrick? Do you think that like some of the senators are making the argument, like Marco Rubio, that the court should pass a law that actually limits permanently the number of justices to 9? Think that's a good idea?
Well, I think what we have to realize and understand very clearly is that the Senate, like no other lawmaking body, is a traditional boys' club. That's a good old boys' club. And they can do whatever they want to do. And when Dr. McClendon said earlier, and you said it too, the Democrats did the same thing. Obama had his chance to actually appoint a judge, and he did his job when the vacancy came up. He came up and he appointed Merrick Garland. But the Senate, whose role it is to advise and consent, doesn't say when they have to do that. So they did not choose to do that. They said, we're going to do that whenever the hell we want to, and we'll do it today. And they closed the door, and Obama did his constitutional mandate, which was to nominate the vacancy. But the Senate had rules. And all those guys, all of them, Joe Biden, number one, they all know it too. That's why they don't really, push to do these significant changes that the public are calling for, because they know their tradition. They've been sitting in that place for 30, 40 years. They know what they're not going to do, and they know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's a club. They have their own.
Yeah. And politics is Mitch McConnell was looking at the long game, and while those Democrats were looking at the short game. Gavin may be able to clarify this. Maybe you too, Stanley, whether Barack Obama actually had the secret talk with, or maybe it wasn't so secret, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, saying, "Could you please retire early so I can appoint someone younger?"
And he did. And here was her mistake, because Hillary Clinton was her protege. They had such a close relationship, and it was actually Hillary Clinton that nominated Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Obviously, it was Bill Clinton, but Hillary asked Bill to choose her. That was her choice.
Yeah.
And so she assumed that Hillary would win and wanted the symbology of Hillary picking her replacement, since it was Hillary that picked her.
Wow.
The problem is, even though everything said Hillary would win, Russia stepped in and so on and so forth, and Hillary didn't win, and her calculation was wrong.
It was wrong. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good point. And which meant that once Donald Trump came in, well, now you got at least 4 years, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg was already, I don't know, what, 80 years old.
Right, an 80-year-old cancer survivor.
Patrick, go ahead. What do you want to say?
Yeah, one last point. So I'm 50. I don't know how old you guys are. You're probably 35 and 36 and 37 over there.
I'll take that. That's it. That sounds right. That sounds about right.
I cut my hair.
Ignore the gray hair. That sounds right.
So I'm 50, and in my lifetime, America has been a center-right nation, and in the last 15 or so years, it has now gone to center-left. And those Republicans, to your point, Dr. McClendon, they are playing the long game. They are trying to get the nation back to center-right. And how can they do that? The best way is to control the courts. Because if you actually examine how Congress works, they plan and they work towards gridlock to leave everything up to the courts to make the changes sustainable and institutional. They don't actually want to make changes in the law in the Congress where the laws are supposed to be made done. If you watch those confirmation hearings, Amy Coney Barrett, ACB, she was saying, I will enforce the law. I will rule on the law. The law gets done here in this body. So they don't actually want to do that. They play the middle, play the long game, and they make money on both sides by creating gridlock. But they make the changes.
That's because of the changes. That's because of the changes in the demographics, and they recognize this. As of today, I don't know who's going to win or lose, but Texas is now in play because Texas has third-generation Mexican immigrants that are voting for the first time. Not their parents were immigrants, their grandparents are immigrants, and they're 20. Georgia might flip because of people in Atlanta voting. North Carolina and Virginia were in play for Barack Obama before all of those southern states were Republican. They realized because of the change in demographics, they're in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because Senate, and you pointed this out, because you get the same two senators, no matter how many people live in your state. That is, there are two senators in Montana, which has maybe 1 million people, but there's two senators for California, which has 20 million people. So two senators that represent 10 times more people, 20 times more people, still only have the same power as two senators in Montana or North Dakota, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So those people are trying to get, like you say, set in stone now, so maybe they can hold on to what they want to hold on to. But I believe that their time is over and progress cannot be stopped. Yeah. This is them fighting, but progress will not be stopped.
The year 2042 is right around the corner. In 2042, whites will no longer be the majority in the United States of America. They're afraid of that. Also, with the Supreme Court, the abortion and Obamacare are in the scope. So we'll see what happens.
Well, that is it for our time here today, folks, on the Quit List. We appreciate you guys tuning in. It's time for us to hit it or quit it on issue number 2, which deals with Amy Coney Barrett. And the question is, does Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation destroy the integrity of the court? In other words, the fact that they have pushed her through, and we know that that is not representative. In other words, six conservatives, three liberals. We know that is not representative of the country itself. So does that somehow destroy or taint the integrity of the court? Give me a yes or no answer. And of course, Hit it means yes, and quit it means no. Patrick.
Well, you got to go ask me first.
Just yes or no. It's just hit it or quit it. The question is, one more time, does that destroy the fact that they pushed her through like that? Does that destroy the integrity of the court? Because we are very disheartened, or at least a lot of people, by that.
I will say it does not destroy the integrity of the court, but I will also add that the court is actually still kind of 5-4 because Robert votes mostly with liberals. So it's not 6-3 yet.
Hit it or quit it.
Does not destroy the integrity of the court, but it does give a big advantage to Republicans, and it does give a huge disadvantage to progressives.
Attorney Jackson.
This is the same court that said Dred Scott is not even a human being. That was decided by the court. So this court goes back and forth, but its legitimacy still stands. I'm looking forward to progress in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Well, thank you, folks. That's our time right here on The Quit List. I'm Dr. Stan, the Quit Doctor. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate our guest being with us, Attorney Gavin R. Jackson, Esquire. We appreciate your input. You, sir, are amazing. We appreciate Dr. Gerard McClendon, PhD, as always. And we want to thank our guest, the frustrated Democrat, Patrick Brutus. Thank you for being here, sir. We appreciate you. We'll see you guys right here next time on The Quit List.
All right.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.